Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started now. So thank you all for being here. I'm Kent Mullinax. I'm the director of the Booth Art Academy, which is just a block down the road. If you want to hear anything about our workshops that we have basically every week, sometimes 2 a week, grab me afterwards, and I'll be happy to tell you all about that. But a couple of quick announcements before we get started with our programming. Some of the exhibitions that are coming up, if you hadn't had a chance to see Concept to Canvas, it's only got about 2 more weeks left upstairs in our temporary gallery, so be sure to, if you haven't seen that, run by there and see that after this. I think you'll love that one, and then that's going to be followed up by the man, the myth, the legend, Jeremy Lipking is going to have an exhibition here right after that. And so that member opening is Saturday, April 11th. So he's going to have, I think, about 30 new pieces. So if you get a chance to come back for that, that's going to be a fantastic exhibition. Currently in our special exhibition gallery, we have Western American art south of the Sweet Tea Line. This is the 7th time we've done that, so that's also closing in early April, so you've got about another month to see that. And then that's going to be followed up by Preternatural and the American West, and it's a Michael Scott exhibition. So the member opening for that is Saturday, May 9th. We do have tons of family events coming up too, so take a look at the website to see that. With the summer getting close, we have summer camps coming up. We have lots of open studios, so plenty of opportunities for kids and family. So check that out. And then also next weekend is our annual gala. So that's going to be next Friday and Saturday, March 13th and 14th. If you haven't gotten tickets for that and would like to, you can also grab me after this program today, and I'll hook you up with the right people and get you squared away. And that's where we're going to be auctioning off next weekend a lot of art as a fundraiser for the museum. And today, after the program, in our members lounge, all the things that are going to be available in the art auction is hanging on the walls. So if you get a chance, swing by there before you go upstairs and take a look at all the different pieces of art that are going to be available next week in the auction. So with that, we'll move on to our programming. We have today with us Cami Mendlik, who is here to teach a workshop at the Art Academy. It actually starts tomorrow. It's a 4-day workshop. And so we're excited to have her here. Cami's passions are teaching and then also studying color and light from life. And so that's her 2 big things. And she also, in 2008, started the St. Croix River School of Painting in Stillwater, Minnesota. And now when she's not out traveling the world and the country painting, she splits her time between Scottsdale, Arizona, and Minnesota. So I want to welcome her to the stage, and she's going to be talking to you guys for the next hour or so.
Thanks, Kent. Okay, hi everybody. Wow, this is a lot of people. How many are here? It's amazing. All right, let's see, get all situated here. Well, like Kent said, I'm Cami Mendlik. I grew up and I was raised in Stillwater, Minnesota on a 450-acre farm. Oops, I don't think I need this. There we go. And since I was little, I've been sketching and drawing and hanging out with my horses, and the cows were my friends. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because, for the last 20 years, I've been building this book. I've been teaching, and my entire life I've been painting. And I realized, man, this is just a quest, this whole thing in art. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming here and being here. And I love that in this room, everybody's here because we just love art. So we need that, and this world needs that. So yay us for being here. So growing up on the farm, and what made me think of this is a couple of months ago, I was interviewed for a podcast. And I've had several podcast interviews, and they always want to talk about my painting, and that's really cool. But this particular podcast interviewer I guess she's really talented, because suddenly an hour and a half went by, and we didn't even talk about my painting. We talked about what led to the painting, which started from being a little girl on the farm where I grew up. And it really, these pieces coming together. So when I was 4, my mom and dad built their house a mile across the field on the farm. So starting at 4 years old, believe it or not, and there was just freedom and safety in my world. I would get a little, like, have an idea or opinion of something, and I'd pack my Holly Hobby suitcase, and I'd run away to Grandma's house. And little did I know that my mom and my grandma were in cahoots. She's on her way. Let me know when she gets there. And between home and Grandma's, which they were both home, I was sandwiched in this beautiful environment, this world of the natural world. And I was privileged the freedom of exploring and discovering and learning who I was at a pretty young, ripe age. And then I went out into the world like we all do. And I'm just curious, how many people are artists or even closet artists, or you just want to paint here? Like, how many here are painters or artists of any type? Okay, and now we'll put our hands down. And who just loves art and they collect art, or they just love to be at these places? And then I bet everybody could raise their hands for both, right? So my life has been interesting, and I talk about that because I'm 52 now, and I realize that this quest, this life quest, this art, it's been about the need and the desire to communicate, and it's a language, and that, I'm so passionate about teaching, and I think it's so that in this precious life that we have that is just so, so precious and fast, and that if anybody has that desire from when they were little on and it's in there somewhere, that I can help them get the tools, the language to express that thing. So a little bit back, this is me, I go on tangents. And that's me authentically. That time of going back there in this podcast, of understanding and verbalizing and, taking an hour and a half with this very talented person who is interviewing me, and she's asking me these questions, and all of a sudden I'm just opening up, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about the fact that our whole lives are an accumulation to where we are, and that painting, to me and to so many, it's just not a pretty picture. It's not just about doing a really good painting. It's something else that we're reaching for. And it's just frustrating. I mean, how many painters are just frustrated more than half the time? It's like, because you have a desire, like that little girl, that little boy had, the desire, the innocence of exploration and curiosity to say something, to do something. It's like here I am, here are my paints, and then there's a space between me and the painting that I'm trying to reach for something, and I'm trying to express the beauty. And express, the word has gotten so diluted that we forget what it means. It means communicate. It's a like, look at us right now. We are having a communication. This is me desiring to communicate. You guys wanting to be part of this stimulating, nourishing thing. So, I wrote a book. It took me 17 years. It was released 3.5 years ago. And it was based off of my students saying, you have to share this with the world. I said, I don't know how to write a book. Well, I did, and it's really good, it turns out. And it's going on its 3rd printing, and I did bring some here. And usually I talk about how I create the illusion of light with color relativity. And you guys are the first ones that I'm going to integrate that with a little bit more wisdom and a little bit more thought-provoking where I am right now. And everything about my art, it is grounded in the tools. I practice the fundamentals every single day, just as a violinist plays her strings before she plays her pieces. But that's what I teach. I have students here that can testify to that. It's all based on that. But these tools are so that you can express and communicate and be your own authentic self. All right, so I'm pretty excited about this. And I get to use a clicker, which is really fun. So this painting here, we're going to be talking, the title of my talk is Speaking the Language of Paint. And this is the Marsh, so 2014. But 2013, I had a studio gallery in Stillwater, Minnesota on the main street. I was raising my 2 children as a single mom and an artist, completely supporting them 100% on my painting. Of course, the world told me that I could not do that. And they also told me I couldn't do a book, and I couldn't make it square. But that's kind of the life of an artist. If you're going to do it, you're doing something that's never been done like this exactly before. So that would have been a nice thing to know. The cows would have told me when I was 5. But I've learned. So this painting is the marsh. And I had the kids, and really I was going month to month. It's like every day I go, am I going to be able to keep doing this? And then a painting would sell to a big collector, and I would be able to do it another couple months. So, and I had the school that I had already founded, and there was this place right out of Stillwater. I needed 10 acres or more to run a business in a rural area. I wanted to reside, raise my children, and have a studio. And I was like, time is of the essence. I don't even want to waste time driving. I want to be immersed in this beautifulness. And what someone else's beauty is or wasn't necessarily what, or my beauty wasn't necessarily what the rest of the world's beauty was. It was a marsh. People were calling it a swamp. There is a difference between a swamp. Like literally, technically, there is a difference between a swamp and a marsh. It is a marsh. Swamps are beautiful too. But I was told, why do you want this? You can't build on it, you can't farm on it. The house is 170 years old, and it's infested with things like bats and mice and things like that. And I saw it, and I saw the vision, and I didn't really know what I was doing. If logic got in the way too much, I would have crawled in a hole and been in the fetal position. But I went for it, and I got this place. So this painting here is the marsh out my studio window in the winter. This is a large painting, and I started with this because it's so symbolic of all these pieces of my life collectively coming up. It did go to AIS, and it did get a big award, and it's in a collection now. But I wanted to start this because it's soft, and it's peaceful, and it's sensitive, and it is making much out of little, not little out of much. It is a beautiful, serene place, and it speaks to my heart. So this is that. So I've been painting, like I said, for a long time, and I will pretty much do anything and go anywhere. This last summer, I had a commission to do an iconic boathouse in the Brule River in Wisconsin. And the only way I could get the vantage point that they saw as their family went around the corner is right on a canoe. And I'm going, well, how am I going to stand in the water? So with help from my friends, we lodged my canoe on these sticks, and I painted. So this is just part of my growing and learning. My little farm with my chicken, painting my peony garden. You can kind of see a little peek of my studio there. All right, let's get into the good stuff. So I'm going to look this way because the lights are a little bright. So for the most part. So we do this thing called painting, and all these beautiful paintings. We're at the Booth Museum, and there's all this beautiful art. But do you ever just think that all of these paintings were just made with paint? It's just so, I mean, it's like we forget this very basic thing. It's like, it's amazing. When I was 3, I would come in and my kids would go to something called Mom's Day Out when they were little, and then they'd come home and I would go down to the river and paint these little studies, and I'd maybe get in 3 while they were gone, and I'd put them on the windowsill. And when I left that house, I had some tears over all the paint pieces in the white windowsill, wet paint. But my son came in one day, he came ripping in, he was probably 5, now that maybe something like that, and he goes, Mom, you're freaking me out. I said, I'm freaking you out? What do you mean? And it was so cute because he had this little 4 or 5-year-old little, twang to him. And he said, that's just paint. And it was so profound to me because until then I was so serious, and I had studied at the Atelier, classical realism and everything. I was so serious, and it was so enlightening. It's like, that's just paint. When I get up close, it's just a bunch of paint, and when I go back here, it turns into a tree in the river. And I'm like, yeah, it is just paint. That's amazing, because we get so caught up in doing a good job and being good at it that we forget this is just paint. And we're doing something, so what are we doing with it? Well, between the paint there's a lot we have to do. That's the unfortunate part. We'd like to just express ourselves, but we have to learn a lot. And the thing that we're trying to say or communicate, or the beautiful feeling of the marsh. So here's the paint, here's the thing we're trying to say. And then there's all these things in between that artists have to do, and it's hard. But it starts with just some yellow, some red, and some blue. My palette is a primary limited palette with 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 blues. So there are tools, kind of, to communicate. But the tools that are invisible that makes artists so interesting and amazing and hard to understand is that it's not something that you just memorize. You have to learn drawing. And there's a whole bunch of categories under drawing. You have to learn values. What's value? Range of light to dark. You have to learn color. In each one of those, there are so many properties that we have to break down that no wonder this is an amazing thing, and there's only a handful of the best, because you have to steadily show up daily doing this thing, drawing values, color, with your paint. All right, there's the cover of my book. We'll get past that. So this quest for truth through expression. All right, what does that mean? Abstracting from the landscape all began with my desire to express my truth. And it's like, I also did this other interview where it was like truth and fact, and I can't help it. I mean, look at George Innes's life. He went so philosophical by the end because he was like going into the truth of things. And you could go, well, what's truth? You know, I grew up in this farm, like, this is black, this is white, and that's how you do. You show up and you work. But there's this space in between as we grow and we understand the gray zone. So the truth is what I was talking about when I was a kid, walking away to the farm, freedom, expression, and how I'm kind of coming back into that now that I've worked really hard to gain my tools to communicate, to say something. And painting, no wonder it's so hard. It's a language. I mean, have any of you tried to learn a second, or maybe a lot of you have a second or third language? It's almost impossible for me to learn. I go to Italy a lot. I don't know why I can't learn it. Well, I don't think I try hard enough, honestly. I don't have the desire or the passion. I also bought a piano. Well, the truth is someone gave me a piano once because I thought that would be really relaxing and fun to play the piano. It's so funny that I would say that. It's like when people tell artists, oh, that must be such a nice hobby. That would be so fun. It looks so relaxing to paint. It looks so relaxing to be Mozart to me. But I mean, I guess Mozart maybe did some work in order to do those pieces. So just like learning French, and I feel a little embarrassed when I go to these other countries and I'm like, ciao, bonjour, you know, depending where I am. And then it's the worst if I say bonjour in Italy or ciao in, you know, France, and I've done it. So, but it's a language, right? And it's a language barrier. So if you have this desire to say something with paint, there's a reason for it, but you have to get the tools to be able to communicate this. So that's what it is, and that is what I believe. What are the qualities in the painting? Okay, so going back and forth, I've been painting since I was little. I really didn't think I was gonna do anything else, but I was also told that I couldn't be a painter because it's not a job. So I thought, well, okay, I think I tried to do something else for a little while. It didn't work. At 18, I started studying classical realism. So that was good for me. And I did it for about 4 years, full time. And it was very good for me. I was kind of like the wild horse, you know, but it's always good to be a wild horse because you can't bring a dead one back to life, right? So that's a good thing. So you could kind of get that, you know, taming happening. So I did that, but I had this burning feeling like I'm making good-looking paintings, crystal vases with all the cuts, the cuttleboning of all the stuff, and there is nothing wrong with that. I love that. It is not for me anymore. I had a burning feeling, And so I couldn't figure it out. I was, being represented by different publishing companies and printing and all of this stuff. And I just still had this, like, I feel like a fake. Like, I feel like a fraud. Like, and I think what it is I knew there was something else I was trying to get to. And I saw, I went to the Russian Museum in Minnesota when it was in this little mall in Bloomington. Now it's this big museum. And I saw this painting that literally forcefully blew me away, and I started bawling, crying. And when I went up close to this painting, it was just paint. I couldn't even make out what it was. And when I backed up, I had emotions, and it was just powerful. So I began my quest to what is that thing? And I didn't even really, I thought expression was, letting balloons off over the, river and calling it art or something like that. There was a lot of that going on when I was growing up. And I went on a quest to figure this out, and I wanted to break down, and this is how I've been my whole life. I've been wanting to break down why, how, what. And so when I started traveling, I started going to the museums and spending countless hours there and breaking down the paintings that not were good or bad, not that others said were the best or the worst, but the ones that spoke to me and moved me. And the ones that did that the most looked like not a lot up close and were impactful and powerful from across the room. This is what I do all the time. No matter what is going on, I'm out painting. I am studying color and light and shapes and values. I really went back to the ones before us, and I realized that I am authentically me, just like we are each authentically ourselves and unique. But the funny thing is we're all very similar in our patterns and what we learn. And forever, I went back to the caveman days. Humans have been making art, and they have been expressing, and they have been writing on walls, and they've been using whatever means of expression that they had available to them. This is the French Impressionist era, Monet, and there's evidence of lots of people painting lots of people and lots of things because people painted people. This is a Sargent piece, and he's painting. He's got some students around him and some painters. These are all pictures that I've taken by myself on the phone in the museums. Monet said, "The richness I achieve comes from nature, the source of my inspiration. I have no other wish than to mingle more closely with nature, and I aspire to no other destiny than to work and live in harmony with her laws." That's how I feel. So, breaking the rules. This is called Sunrise Impression. This was a critical. The critics criticized this and said they're calling them, the impression, his impression of something. So there's movements in art and history, which I find pretty fascinating. I picked this one also because it's water, and I'm teaching a water class the next 4 days. But I do find the history of the ones before us helpful in my quest, because if someone else has done this and they've done this well, I kind of want to know how they did it. What am I seeing that moves me? So there's a lot of lessons in the museums, and I thought, being at this museum, this is a good opportunity to talk about that. So going to the museums and learning from masterpieces. What I did is I would walk into a room. I still do this. I even have a chapter in my book about how to do this, so you can spend time with one painting in a museum, breaking it apart to see what is the carrying power from across the room. My first mentor, Mary Pettis, used to talk about the carrying power of a painting, and it wasn't until I had more experience that I understood. And the first time that it really connected with me was in Bennington, Vermont. I was selected the show was called, exhibition was Artists for This Century. And what they were talking about, or top magazines and collectors got to choose the artists that they thought were gonna be noticed in this century when we're all dead and gone. And I was invited to be part of this exhibition. And there was a speaker there that was talking about Georgia O'Keeffe. Younger me kind of went, I kind of put my nose up, but I can't believe it. I'm saying this, it's going to be on record. That younger me did put my nose up a little bit because I wasn't excited about the paintings. I started classical realism, I mean, I don't see that like that. But now I get why she was so extraordinary. The speaker talked about her days in Lake George out east, and which I also just thought she painted out in New Mexico because I didn't know enough. And the lesson was that she said, I'm not making this up. People are saying this is some weird modern crazy art, and that's not exactly a quote, it was something like that. And she said, I'm not making this up, it's truth. I'm abstracting from the landscape. I'm pulling from. Look up the word abstract. It's pulling from, it's taking from, it's truth. So we say simplify the shapes, and then we think, oh, easy. No, you have to be so good to make it look so easy. And I began going, oh my gosh, this isn't about all the stuff in between. This is about the carrying power from across the room. This is Boston. This is John Carlson. So I went to the Wausau Museum. What's it called? Wausau. But what is the Waikiki? Oh, shoot. I had it in my little notes on the thing, but no. Well, the museum in Wisconsin, they had an exhibition that came through of American Impressionist. John Carlson. Who knows the book Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting? Raise your hand. Most painters know this book. It is it's great, but it's in black and white. So I've been reading it, I've had it since I was 20. And then I go there and I see he was a colorist. Oh my gosh, and he's one of America's best known painters. And I had no idea. And he didn't die that long ago, like 50-ish plus years. So they're still in private collections, but I mean, so you don't just get to always see them. But I saw this, and this was a piece that I'm like, can I come back here? It's like a 4-hour drive from my house, and I went there in January, and it was not the easiest drive in the winter. And I set up, so if you're a painter, guess what you can do? I don't know if the booth does this, but most museums, you can get permission ahead of time, and you can study a masterpiece. This isn't about copying or stealing. This is about studying with the person who may no longer be here anymore to learn. And oh, did I learn so much. And I learned that this thing that my mind filled in when I saw this was like 3 shapes of color. It was just amazing. And that's when I started realizing this is about shapes. Abstraction is about shapes. It's about color, but it's about controlling the color. It's about a juxtaposition of one color against another color. And this is from the d'Orsay, I think, or maybe it's Boston, I can't remember. The d'Orsay's in Paris. But this is a Monet. And even when I was young, my grandma had coffee table books of Monet, and even then I thought, well, there's posters of Monet. So I put my nose up to Monet. Oh my goodness, please forgive me. And I just, because it seemed like, but now I know the genius in this. The genius, and it's so awesome that we had a full spectrum of his life because he lived to be in his 90s, which is amazing. But it was about the shape. So what do I do with this information? I'm not going to copy them. But how do I bring this to mine? I learn from them. I break it apart, and I start doing this. And I start really taking pieces of the painting, and I see how many values there are. How many what's the overall color harmony? What's the juxtaposition of values and temperatures? And I just start breaking them apart. And it wasn't, people think they want to be painterly or they want to have loose brushwork. You don't get to jump to that. You are going to fall. You have to step pebble by pebble by pebble to learn, so that automatically the brushwork becomes painterly because you have the tools so ingrained in you. I'm going to read this again. The richness I achieve comes from nature, the source of my inspiration. I have no other wish than to mingle more closely with nature, and I aspire to no other destiny than to work and live in harmony with her laws. That seems very natural to me. And there I am trying to do this, trying to do that too. This is 2019 in Paris, or Avignon, or something like that, Provence. Dissecting a painting. So what makes the painting strong from across the room? Okay, here it is. Abstract shapes. Abstract not meaning, does anyone else, did they grow up hearing about abstract and thinking it's throwing paint on the canvas and putting your nose up to it and going, I could, and your grandma says, I could do that, or, they get paid this money and I could do that. And it's like they kept this secret from us that abstract is pulling from. So the word abstract was a movement that kind of distorted what the truth of it is, I think. So abstract shapes, simple, not easy. I always tell my students, simplify the shapes. So then they get lazy and they just go, how's that? That's about it. But that's not it either. You have to be an excellent draftsman to accurately abstract. So we're going to look a little bit more at this, and I'm going to start showing you what I was seeing. Look at these shapes right here. All right. It's when you really dissect this, it's like, oh, that's just paint. But when you're in the presence, has anyone been in the presence of a Monet painting, like an actual painting? It's moving. It is like being by a Sorolla. I mean, it's just like, and the more that I know, the more I know I don't know, and the more sophisticated I see this work is. It is not blobs of purple and pink. There's a lot of people copying this, and that's not great art. But this is authentic beauty. My only virtue is to have painted directly in front of nature while trying to render the impressions made on me by the most fleeting effects. We hear a lot about fleeting effects, how that's plein air painting is so hard, all of that stuff. But rendering the impressions made on me. Maybe that's why he was so authentic and original. The trying to render the impressions made on me, not anyone else. That's how he was seeing it and feeling it. This is actually a Renoir of Monet painting. I thought that would be kind of fun to see that. What is abstract? Truth. This is how I teach. I spin back to the beginning. I build on it and I build on it. My search for truth and authenticity came from abstraction. All right, here's some Recession 101. This is, I'll talk about this more with my class tomorrow, but how many in here are in my class tomorrow, by the way? I'm just curious. I'd love to meet you all. Yay, good. We're going to get into this more tomorrow, and everything gets lighter and cooler as it moves away, but the shape is, oh, look at that. There's a shape contouring with, it's not bubbly at all. It's actually quite planal. There's another shape. So shapes within the shapes. Armature. So an armature, I usually use a letter. That's an H armature. Very strong from across the room. Very, very strong. All right, take that away. I'm going to see if I can go back and forth. All right, just to kind of get it embedded. So there are things that we break apart when I'm going to see how I'm doing on time. I can talk a lot. There's things that we're doing when we're painting. We're seeing leaves and a billion branches and all the things. And at first we want to speckle them and put them in and try to fit. It's called mimicking. So we're trying to figure out how and making all the detail because we go into it. But I'm going to do a little exercise with you guys. So everyone's probably mostly looking at my face, I think, or the painting. But for a minute, just look at my face. And I'm going to teach you that we actually don't, and just keep looking at my face, and I'll tell you when to stop. I'm going to teach you that we don't actually see everything in detail. We can only see one thing in detail at a time, and that's why super hyper detailed work, although very beautifully executed, and it can be a wonderful illustration, and it can be a wonderful piece of art, it's not the work that moves me, and it's because of my quest for truth and the feeling that I have. So, detail. Now look at my hand, not my face. It's going to be hard because I'm going to keep talking. But do you see how you no longer see my face in detail. This is reality. This is actual truth. So that is, now you can look wherever you want, but keep looking at the hand. But that's what's so interesting about this. I finally was like, oh, that is why that doesn't feel real. I want to translate an experience, like Monet said, like the impressions that were made upon me. So that's what I want to do. And I don't want to paint like anyone else. But I do want to paint well. And I hope I paint better every day for the rest of my life. That's my plan. I'm not there yet. I'll probably never get there. But this is why there's a breakdown of this. Is like, oh, that's why I feel intimidated. And I don't actually get a feeling like I want to be a better painter when I look at paintings like that. But when I look at a painting that moves me, it's when there's shapes that I would see if I'm not just, maybe look at one place, but it's the impression that I actually take in, because we can't see everything in hyper detail at the same time. That is a Mendlik painting. That is a demonstration. Do you see the H? Now I'm going to attempt to use my fun little, there. Oh, this is not that easy. This is like backing up a trailer. Okay, I got good at that as a kid. So that's the H armature. So you might see, and now I don't know, technology, why won't this go away? I might have done something. Maybe I'll there, oh, okay. Yikes, I went ahead and did that, uh-oh. Okay, I'm not gonna point anymore. Learning things every day. So here's my H. And people see that and they go, oh, it looks like such real water. If you saw the painting in person, it's just really strokes of paint, but it's organized with, first of all, the armature, and then the value and the color structure. Learning to see abstract. Now we're gonna have a little lesson. Let me check my time. Will you kick me out if I go over? No, okay. You are free to go if you would like, no. Learning to see abstract. So simplifying the shape, simple, not easy. I know I've said that, but I've definitely learned that over teaching. I've taught thousands of people now, which is wild, over 1,000 in person, and people need to repeat, repeat, repeat. So we're learning a language, just like when we learn French, or we try, repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay. This is my marsh. Well, I'm the keeper of the marsh. This is our earth. And this is what I see from my studio window. And I just love this scene, and every day it just amazes me. And the more that I see it, the more humbled I am, and I have to express it. And this is early spring when the buds are just starting to just turn a little tiny color, but it's very subtle. So there's no leaf structure or foliage to give you like the big volume, like broccoli head forms. So they're lacy, which is difficult. And my eyes really see, when I'm there, I see all the cattails and all the things and all the billions of branches. So how do you organize this, especially when it's a pretty simple scene? All right, so that's the picture. This is how I see. All right, I have dyslexia, and when I was a kid, I had dyslexia undiagnosed, and it was pretty extreme, and so much that it wasn't until I was in high school when I found one of my books. Pretend that I have a piece of glass, and I write my name, and then I go like this. So not only was I writing from right to left, I was flipping every letter around. This also explains some things because I saw shapes, and I learn like a lot of, not everybody learns the same way. And I've learned that a lot of artists, whether you're dyslexic or not, some people are and they don't even know it, but it really became a strength for me because I saw shapes. So what I tell my students is don't just look at the primary shape. So the primary shape would be the trees, and everyone wants to paint trees. They want to learn how to paint a tree. So they're trying so hard to paint the tree, and they're forgetting that one of the most important pieces of a tree is the sky shape that cuts in. Think of it like a Lego or like a puzzle piece. Like my son used to put Legos together, and there's like that little click, that when they pop in. So think of the sky and the tree line like two shapes, so that no longer are we just drawing the things that we think we see, but everything in the scene supports the other shape. So there's like three shapes here: sky, tree line, and ground plane. So the shapes just kind of, and that's a juxtaposition, and that strengthens the drawing right there. So if you're a painter or you're a drawer, don't allow your sky to become a lazy result of your tree drawing. The sky is such an important supporting actor. All right, so here I'm going to start breaking this down and simplifying. I'm going to go back for 1 second just so you can see the thing last time. So in painting, we separate shapes, we identify and we separate values, okay, and colors. But how I teach color is that it's a value, all right, because straight out of the tube, yellow is lighter than blue. So it has to be a value. And I don't use black, so except for on studies. So I'm using color to create the illusion of light with paint. So here you can kind of see where I'm breaking things apart. I'm never using curly, round, cute little cotton ball lines. I'm contouring the juxtaposition with a plane change, which is if you think of a little bag of sticks. All right. So earlier on, I said we're making all these paintings with yellow, red, and blue. And of course, the industry has made we have so many tubes of paint, the colors. But I have found, and I used them all, and I have about 1 million tubes of paint. Because I go to the art store and something happens to me, and all of a sudden I'm like hauling my bag of paint that I don't need out because it's so pretty. But what I've found, and my students have helped me with this over 20 years of teaching, is that their paintings became better when they had to know what to do and how to make the color and where they're going. And I started taking away the green, taking away the umbers, taking away the things that weren't primary. And we began using yellow, red, and blue. And when I travel, I just use yellow, red, and blue. So Y is yellow, R is red, B is blue. So what I do to figure out this very complicated scene, this is harder than rocks. I'm living in Arizona during the winter now, and it's easier for me because there's structure. It's like there's a rock, there's a shadow, there's a definite thing, but leafless deciduous trees on a marsh is really hard because the structure is vague. So you have to abstract from it. You have to make structure. You have to find where the one shape ends and the other starts. And you have to figure out what is the relationship of these colors by eliminating the tertiary, and that's what my whole book is on. And it's what my whole book is on. You can create the illusion of light with paint by not working in all the details too soon. So that's without my lines. So this is just so you know, this is on my iPad to simplify that. This is just to kind of teach. This is the plein air study. So this is what I was doing here is teaching you how I see and how I broke apart all these masterpieces in the museums. So this is my plein air study. This painting, I had no idea was going to become such a thing. But it's one of my, along with this one and a water piece that I did, it might be the pieces that when I'm dead and gone, they remember me by. Because I couldn't stop, and I kept trying to, this is a big one, and this went to a museum show, I can't remember. It's in a collector's possession now, but it traveled. And then I ended up doing a demonstration of the same scene on my video that's up here. But this, you can see, this is my information, plein air, and it's very, very painterly. And even the plein air piece went into the American Impressionist Society exhibition at the Selma Gundy Club in New York. And it was like an hour, plus, all the years before, right? How long did that take you? 1 hour plus 35 years. and counting. So this, if you saw the original, it's pretty good size, but there's more. I got the information and the inspiration from my plein air study, and then I could work and refine it as much as I wanted to. Wow, I didn't even know I did that. Strategize color harmony, shapes of color. So again, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to kind of go through just a tiny bit here. So with all of this, I wondered, people talk about focal point. You have to have a focal point. You have to have a focal point. Here's how you make a good composition. That's never felt right to me, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's never felt true to me, because I'm like, the whole thing is beautiful. And if I'm just, and it almost felt like a gimmick to me to say, the tree is the focal point, and now you do these little tricks to make it stronger, and that feels like maybe it doesn't resonate with me. So decades of teaching, my students are like, what about the focal point? Because someone else said to them, you need to have one. So that was a question about 15 years ago that I really dug into and I researched. I like researching. I'm curious. And of course, you go down a rabbit hole when you research. It's like all of a sudden you're, learned about a country you didn't know even existed. So I thought about that. And the law of nature is harmony. I mean, the ultimate goal I was taught even at studying classical realism 34 years ago now was they always said ultimately you want a masterpiece has harmony in it. No piece competes with another piece of the painting. And so I didn't get that then. I couldn't get that then. But I know that that's the overall, we want harmony. And for me, I mean, nature at every moment is complete harmony. The color of yesterday's sky does not go with tomorrow morning's sky. I mean, you can't go, I'm going to put this sky in here, and the trees are going to be the color of yesterday. You can, but to me, that's not harmony. The reason I'm a representational painter is I'm representing and honoring. I want to honor this beautiful natural world and reach for something. So I found this again. For me, a landscape does not exist in its own right, since its appearance changes at every moment, but the surrounding atmosphere brings it to life. The air and the light, which vary continually for me, is the only surrounding atmosphere that gives subjects their true value. And that's kind of like harmony, right? I mean, that's constantly, harmony is in every second. There's harmony in this room right now. Everything is happening and everything is harmonious because it's happening simultaneously. So then how do you do this, creating harmony? Well, I think it's through color relationships and accurately studying how one relates to another in shapes of color, which we've already talked about. I'm going to just, okay. Yellow, red, and blue. Okay, this is a little bit of 101, back and forth, back and forth. Was it Emerson or was it Ruskin who said that painting is a dance between passion and intellect? So it's like, yeah, you can't just be, young Cammie wanted to be the wild horse and I just want to paint. I don't want to learn the stuff. I just want to play the piano. I don't want to do the work that it takes. And then you realize, I still want this thing so badly that I'm here and now I'm willing to go back to the beginning to be better, to say something, to express. And this is for painters or non-painters. Yellow is a primary, red is a primary, blue is a primary. We sometimes forget about this basic thing. Primaries and secondaries, I have found, okay, so a secondary is two primaries, so 1 + 1 is 2. And when I was, okay, so I'll keep on that. I was going to go off on a tangent. 1 + 1. So yellow and red is orange, red and blue is purple, yellow and blue is green. The problem is I've never really seen any just secondaries in nature. Everything's a tertiary, which is 3. 1, 2, 3. Yellow, red, blue. All right? But there is a predominance in this order. The reason this is interesting with talking about harmony and nature, what I have found is that the envelope of light, okay, envelope of light, envelope meaning enveloping and touching everything from the color of the light in nature, envelops and harmonizes the scene, okay, envelops, envelope. So what I found is typically there is an opposition going. Like, look at how orange and blue are. Did they call them complementary colors or something? Like, that's the thing, complementary. So yellow and purple, red and green. So if you're trying to neutralize, say you've got a yellow field of grasses, and it's looking garish. The answer is the remaining secondary. So you go across the little primary wheel, and that neutralizes or grays it, okay? Calms it down, dechromatises it. And then just knowing the basics of, okay, this is in my book too. We have a yellow in the corner, a red in the corner, a blue, and then in between is a gradation of warmer to cooler. So yellow, everything's relative. That's why this book is called Color Relativity, Creating the Illusion of Light with Paint, because it's all relative. It's why painting is difficult. It can be easier if you have a strategy and you understand this stuff. But you do need to know that red temperature can be an emotional response, and we do know this. I mean, there's been studies in psychology of, red is like Valentine's Day, right? Hot, love, it's for love. It's, little kids know that if they see red, it's hot. If they see blue, it's cold. They know that right away. It's just so bizarre. They know that right away, intuitively. And so we do have an emotional response to that. But when we're talking about prismatically and recession or atmospheric perspective, yellow is the warmest, and then red, and then blue. Red, is it warm or cool? You can never call a color, this is a warm color, this is a cool color. It's a warmer color or a cooler color. Here's why. Yellow is warmer than red and blue. Blue is cooler than red and yellow, and red is warmer than blue and cooler than yellow. All right, so that's just the very basics of color relativity. And then, so does that mean I have 10 minutes or 5? 10, okay. I got the wave. I'm doing pretty good though. All right, and then everything that we see out there is form. So we're creating the illusion of light, but if it wasn't for the form, how would we see it? And we're making trees and grasses and water and all the things are form. So form is three-dimensional. I'm a three-dimensional form. The tables are, this is two-dimensional, right? So we're translating a three-dimensional world onto a two-dimensional surface. So we need to understand how form works, and that every time there's a plane change, there's a value and a temperature change. All right, we're not even going to talk about the word color because that's in there. This is a property of color. So about 20 years ago, I made these plaster fruits, and now we sell them so that people can understand and see, and you can see it. Look at that lightest plane on the lemon. So if I were to turn that, it would get shorter. That's a foreshortened plane, and the color would change. So we can practice studying. We can become amazing master landscape painters by just studying real things that we can see. So this is a tool, and then you can see on the left side what Leonardo da Vinci discovered, which blows my mind. He discovered that shadow is the absence of light. That's a discovery. I mean, he discovered the scale and proportion of the human body. And now we know it. Before then, eyeballs were up here, lips were tiny, ears were miniature, and it's like, and foreheads, whoa. I mean, there was just, it's so funny, isn't it? If you go see the pre-Renaissance work before Da Vinci, one man discovered how to see light and shadow on the form and taught it. So if we think that we should just be good at this because we have this feeling and we've painted, it's not how long you've painted, it's what you do with that time. Just painting, it's like when my nephews and nieces would come over when I had the piano that I did eventually give away to put back into the system of someone that wanted to sit there and play it. When they would come over and pound, 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 pound the piano, that is not music to me. It's like when people just throw a bunch of paint on there. It's fine. It's okay to do that. But it can be frustrating because it's not just time painting. It's what you do with your time painting. So I'm just showing you this to show you some light and shadows and like, oh, look how it happens in a real paint, in a real fruit. Can you see the form revealing halftone, the cast shadows, the upright shadows? It's so cool. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. I'm like, wow, there's a painting. There's a study of mine. Some Renoirs, and now I'm going to move a little faster. Some Renoirs, Cami Mendlik. There's mine. So every time I'm painting, that's a Tuscan tree with form. Sky was a very important shape. The marsh. I'm definitely going to go over a few minutes. I always think, will I be able to fill an hour? By seeing this, though, you can see beauty everywhere. This was called morning prayer on the marsh. I was literally praying at the blue chair that I have under the cottonwood, and this came up. I'm like, oh, how can this be so beautiful? And it was just a moment, you know? The marsh, the pond where I grew up, things that are important to me. If you saw this, it doesn't look just like this. You know, the trees aren't literally blue. They're blue in relation to. This is a version of the cover of my book called Into the Silver Lining. Been wanting to paint this high bridge. It still runs. It was built in 1908, I think, across the St. Croix River, where I grew up. I hike there. Well, now I'm in Scottsdale, but every day in the winter, this is my hike, and I finally thought, I've got to do this. So now it exists. This is the piece that I got the bronze medal in the Dorothy Dryhouse Mellon Foundation Fellowship for. And it's just a little tiny moment, you know, on my dad's pond, but it's the shapes. See that? I saw the shapes, not the Kabylian water lilies. The Brule River, which I love painting. So this is a sideways big T, big composition. Brule River, this was a big painting that was done from these are all done from plein air pieces. Color looks a little funny there, but this is actually in a museum in Virginia right now at the National Sporting Museum. That's my dad's pond. I was packing up, done painting, looked up to my left, which is west, and that was happening. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I had to just be there, you know? Maui. So everywhere I go, there's shapes. So this could be kind of an L. I look at it like a big backwards boom. You know, how can I structure all this stuff and waves moving and crashing and their shapes? Scottsdale, Arizona. And again, shapes. It's just structuring the lights against the dark. Typically, you want to have a little bit more light or dark, one or the other. And this is the one I was doing in the boat, the first paint, the picture of me in the canoe. So this is actually a large painting that I went and did several plein air studies, and this resides, I think, in Virginia too. This is my farm. This is the stream where I crossed to run away. You know, not really run away, but be free. So yeah, this is a special piece to me, and I just finished a larger version 2 days ago. This is a plein air piece here. Scotland painting. Yeah, again, I put this in because I went, oh yeah. I remembered the feeling of that day, thinking this is the most overwhelming, magnificent scenery I've ever seen. How can I possibly do this? I can't. I still get scared, like, I don't know how to do this. And then I pretend that I'm talking to one of my students. You can do this. It is just a shape. But the sky and the seagulls and the stuff and the castle behind you and all the things, nope, this is just a shape. So how does the whole shape cut into that rock structure? And I put the two little birds in there because that was really fun because they were such a part of the feeling of the harmony. And I would do the pointer thing, but I don't know. So you can see I used a Z formation on this one. I used the clouds, so that's like a Z. Oh, and then I think that's how we're going to conclude this because I had more as a backup plan, but I don't think we need it. So, yeah. So fun. Does anybody have any questions? Or is that what we do now?
Yeah, we'll do a couple of questions. If you have one, just say it out loud, and then I'll repeat it just so everybody can hear it. And then
Good idea.
We've got time for a couple of them. Anybody?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the question is reference photos, if you're taking those before you paint.
Yes, so I take, I pretty much use my iPhone for everything now, except for photographing for the website. But when I set up, I take a picture. And then when I'm done, I take a picture. And usually my sunset paintings happen not because I went out to do a sunset, but because I happen to be packing up from another one. And then I always, the trick or the key is to always have an extra 6x8 in your panel or in your box, because you're just ready for it then. So I just usually have a 6x8, and I've got a lot of 6x8s covered vigorously of just like going for it because it's changing. And then I take a picture too, like that big museum piece that you saw. That was a larger piece and took me weeks to paint, but it was based off of the photograph, which, you know how in the photograph everything just, the tree's like black. And it's like I really think if you want to paint landscape, or if you paint landscape, you have to get out and at least study. They don't have to look good. I want to just say one thing about plein air painting too, is that I think what's happened with all the movements and all the stuff with plein air painting, and it's all good because it's bringing recognition, but there's also, for every action there's a reaction too, and there's a performance anxiety that I think has developed because of looking at the competitions and people painting really good, and there's this pressure where I really encourage you and myself to continue to just be out there not judging ourselves while we're painting, but to be genuinely studying. And then if we do that enough, good paintings happen later, you know.
Anybody else?
No? All right.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. And again,
Thanks.
if you have time, go over to the members lounge and take a look at this art. Thanks.
Oh, and I do have a few books up here, and I've got a few videos too. So, all right. Thanks, you guys.